Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being the show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of American Gods, as well as, I don't know whether to count it as a season premiere or a series premiere, because technically, obviously it's a continuation, but at the same time, it's a brand new series, so technically it falls under, purview of series premiere, but nevertheless, talking about Twin Peaks, the series premiere of Twin Peaks, we'll just leave it like that. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you don't want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of American Gods, damn it, I suck at this. I screwed it up, but we're keeping it. Or Twin Peaks, just shut up. Either way, links are in the description if you want to see. First thing we're going to talk about is American Gods. God, that sucked, but it was too good to leave alone, so I definitely can't restart it. I have to keep that. American Gods. So in this episode, we got Laura's side of the story. Very interesting. I wasn't really sure, I figured obviously we're going to deal with the affair situation, her and Robbie. Who did not know that Robbie, I guess he didn't register the first time I saw his face. I guess I didn't really get a good enough look, but Robbie is played by Dane Cook. That's cool. Also, side note, I don't think I pointed this out at the end of premiere, but basically, Audrey, Robbie's wife, I don't know the actress's name, but she played Sherlock's girlfriend for a little while in Elementary. But nevertheless, basically we learn how Shadow and Laura met. It was basically like she worked at a casino and stuff like that. He came in trying to cheat. She called him out for it and everything, and they just kind of hit it off. To me, breaking the whole situation down, it seems like Laura gets bored of life. Because for her, she brings up the fact is when it comes to the afterlife and stuff like that, she's like, I don't believe in all that. There's basically points in life whether it's Santa Claus or Jesus, whatever the case may be, as you grow up and go throughout life, the magic just disappears. She's like, I wish I could have that magic back of believing in an afterlife, of believing all this stuff. But it's for her, it's just going, when you die, you rot in the ground. That's all there is to it, which is I personally don't know where I stand on the whole thing, but I'd like to think there's an afterlife just for the sake of, man, that's too depressing to think about. All you do is rot and there's nothing more, that there's just, certain things that just kind of have a tendency to depict that all that's left for you waiting is darkness. Considering it's kind of funny because that's actually all that's waiting for Laura, because it's actually based on her own beliefs, because she believed in nothing in life, that she gets nothing in the afterlife, essentially. So, at least that's how that was. And also the fact that she turned down Anubis's whole he was about to get her heart. She's like, well, what are you doing? He's like, I need to judge your heart. She's like, really? I know this is stacked against me, because the fact of the matter is it's a feather versus my heart. And it's I don't play that. I live my life my own way. I'm not going to let you kind of judge my heart based on the way I lived and stuff like that. So, but, to me, it just seemed like there's certain things of life that she just kind of the emotions of life, she just kind of got bored with. There's points, even her and Shadow having sex, it just seemed like she was just kind of going with emotions and stuff like that at certain points. There's even a point where she's in the hot tub, she puts the cover up there and she starts spraying herself. Because she even asked Shadow later on, it's can you get some more bug spray? And it's what the hell is that all about? Do you just living on the edge? I guess it's live on the edge to make you feel alive. Is she kind of an adrenaline junkie in that sense? Is that she needs to do crazy stuff to kind of get a rush out of life? She needs to put her I don't know. I can't really understand that. At least that's where my mindset's on it. If you got some opinions about it, let me know. I'm very curious, your take on it. To me, that's where my brain immediately goes. It's she needs to feel something because she doesn't feel anything at all. Because it just seems, like I said, it just seems like she's going through the motions, because it seems everyone kind of brings it up to her. It's the fact that Shadow loves you more than you love him. She's like, no, I love Shadow, even though I'm here cheating on him. It's no, I love Shadow. She at least admits it later on. She's the biggest lie she told, she's only told one lie. Granted, there's been multiple lies connected to that one big lie, but it's I can wait for Shadow, but she couldn't, so... Even throughout the episode, bouncing back and forth, being I love Shadow. I love Shadow. I love Shadow. Because honestly, I don't think she even really 100% knows how she feels. Maybe it's something prior to Shadow. Maybe she's just... everyone's built differently. So I'm not trying to shame her for that. But it's just some people just are not good at conveying feeling things and stuff like that. So... What was kind of interesting is I was right. She did come back as some zombie. It's not like she was fully intact, just normal, everything back to life. It's no, she came back to life as a zombie, to the point Her body, her limbs start falling off. I think it's mainly because one of the faceless dudes ended up hitting her arm and breaking off. I don't remember like what I said in the premiere on like who exactly that could have been. I think I might have alluded it to being her, maybe not. But I felt like obviously she's gonna come back as a zombie. She came back as a badass zombie because it's like she like palms one dude's head up and just like rips his head off. Another dude, she just punches straight through him. And then the final dude, what'd she do? She like kicks him so hard that it nuts, his body literally splits in half. It's like, wow, she messed him up bad. But it's like, for her to be able to do that, like, cause like really quickly, like this is kind of me going a little off the record, like off the board a little bit with the zombie stuff. But it's like, I wonder, can she, like, is the real reason why her body fell apart was because she was pushing her body too hard? Was it just because she got hit and obviously like the tendons and muscles inside of her body are dead, so that's why it fell off like that? Because at first when she got hit, it didn't like it hurt, it didn't feel like she felt any pain, but it just kind of like, but afterwards she was behind the tree hiding from shadow and it just like fell off. So I'm wondering, is it a sense of like, is it just because she's a zombie or whatever? Like, is it kind of like, is this a zombie or Koriwa zombie, desu, whatever you want to refer to it as? Or basically in that, it's an anime and a manga / light novel. Basically, zombies can supercharge their power. So like, whereas a normal person could go 100%, zombies in like, could in that series can go like, push their body to 300 or 400%. I'm wondering, is that the same thing here? Maybe that's a combination of that plus getting hit in her arm. It's a reason why her arm flew off. Just speculation at this point. Also, why is it that she sees Shadow as a light? She refers to him as the light of her life. You know, it's like, is she seeing that because of just purely because of the coin? Because Shadow is kind of how important he is to her. But once again, it's like, was he that important to you when you were alive? And is he a lot more important to you dead? At the end of the day, it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, and sadly, the question also is, does it matter? He's important to you now, so does that, you know, does that take away from the fact that he might not have been that important to you when you're alive? It's semantics, in my opinion, but it's a really hard subject to really say. Like I said, every person's built differently, and we don't know what kind of made her, be built in that exact way. Maybe certain parts of her upbringing make her very reluctant to get super close to people. I don't know. Also, there's the whole reason why Shadow went in jail in the first place. Because basically she's like, yo, I want to rob this place. And he's like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, let's rob the place. You brought up the idea and everything. He's like, well, what if we get caught? She's like, we're not going to get caught. Because Shadow's got this whole mentality of like, yo, I'm ready to go anywhere. I can be anywhere. I can live in a cardboard box. I'd be happy as long as I'm with you. But for her, she's like, no, like the fact of the matter is like, she's very hard to understand. She's very complex in a sense of like, she even brings up like, yeah, you're better, like, you know, off than me. Like, what I mean is like, how am I, I'm terrible at phrasing, that he's too good for her is what I was trying to say. Gosh, I stumble across that for, early morning recordings is what I should be saying. Nevertheless, like, I don't know, she's a very complex character. But the whole him getting busted thing, she's like, no. She's like, I've worked there for 8 years. I know everyone's habits. Things shouldn't have played out like they did. I think it was like cops came in really quickly and stuff like that. Some cops came in and it kind of screwed the whole thing up. She's like, no, someone on the inside screwed us up. Immediately my brain goes, Mr. Wednesday? Could this be part of his plan? Because I mean, obviously he set his sights on Shadow from the very beginning. Like, I doubt like that them on that plane ride was the exact moment. Like, he's probably been planning this for a while to go after Shadow. It's just like at some point in the past, he probably caught a glimpse of Shadow and was like, hey, you might prove to be useful or something. So maybe he set all that in motion, getting Shadow put in jail and everything. There's actually a deal that could have been put in play for Shadow to actually get like less time. Him and Laura would get like a year and a half or something like that rather than 6 that Shadow got. I mean, granted, he'd be out in 3, but still. But he wouldn't be willing to let her do that because, you know, for Laura, she's like, the fact is, it's my fault. I'm the one to talk to you into it. But he's like, it's my choice. You asked me and I said yes. So, you know, I'm not going to fault you for that. So, probably my favorite part, though, is when Audrey comes back and she's like, Laura? She's like, get away from me, you zombie whore. It's like also like what makes it super messed up is like she's busted in. She's like, can I use your bathroom? She's like, wait, what? And she sits down on the toilet and it's like apparently the embalming fluid is just coming out every hole in her body and she's just like, in so much pain and everything. It's like that's disgusting. I mean, the first thing she did when she came out of her grave was like threw up embalming fluid from her mouth. It's like, I thought that was the end of it. Apparently, it's not. I was like, because once she started that grumbling, I'm like, oh man, she's got a taste for human flesh. Oh no, she just needs to go to the toilet really badly. Okay, wasn't expecting it. And the tension kind of quickly disappeared when Audrey's like, she's like, like, I forgot what it was that Laura had asked, but Audrey's like, Laura, what was the last thing you remember before you died? And she's like, oh. It's like, oh, yeah. She's like, yeah, I kind of realized you were remembering at the last second and stuff like that. Also, did she bring it up last in the premiere that she buried Robbie with his? I think they brought that up because I remember her like she was telling Shadow, "It's like, oh, don't worry, like they took the dick out of her throat before she ended up before they buried her and everything." And I'm like, and in this episode, she kind of brought up the fact that she was so pissed at the whole trying to have sex with Shadow on top of her grave. And she's like, oh, that's very mean of me. Also, the fact is, I buried Robbie with his dick shoved up his butt, and it's like, wait, what? Did she mention that in the first episode? Maybe she did, and not remembering that. I feel like I would have remembered that exact conversation, but maybe it kind of glossed over me because a lot of stuff was happening at the same time. I mean, I don't think she brought it up, but let's not forget she also pissed on Robbie's grave too, so. Like I said, this can't be all connected. Like, it's not like him and Laura coming back. It's not just like only Laura because of that gold coin, which I'm still trying to understand, like, what is this whole situation? Like, I brought it up before, like, I kind of pulled away from it, but the whole yellow, like, the whole light around Shadow, like, it's kind of like a beacon for her. That's how she always knows where to go to find Shadow. So is it kind of like a master servant type of situation where it's like somehow his power infused with the coin, and when he flipped it and basically it brought her back to life? Because the coin seems like it's connected to luck, which I don't see how that would be used. So, like, once again, we were kind of, last episode kind of points out the fact is that Shadow does have some godlike powers. Maybe there's something to him. So maybe it's a combination of maybe his powers ended up changing what the coin can do. Maybe secretly that was what Mr. Wednesday did. I'm very curious to see. Obviously, like, the whole episode is just kind of like getting us back to where the last episode ended off. But I'm very curious to see what happens during a conversation between Mr. Wednesday and Laura. I mean, will he be able to explain anything? Will he be like, oh, holy crap? Like, will he have no idea what this is all about? Has there been other people who've done this before? So many questions. Also, apparently, the dude that was kind of like, we saw at the very beginning of the series, who's kind of, it seems like he's kind of like the writer and stuff like that. Apparently, it seems like he's Anubis's brother. It's like kind of like a family-run business and everything, which is like, is that him, like, telling the stories of dead people? Is that what that whole thing's about? Like, once people have passed on, he tells their stories. Is that what that might be all about? Which is kind of wait for the future to see. So they end up helping her, obviously fix her up. I mean, Audrey tried her best with the whole arm situation, but it didn't work out. Does make you wonder, where does that go from here? Does that mean Audrey's kind of off on her own? Did she end up going back? Just wasn't expecting those turn of events to kind of transpire like they did. I mean, I said that maybe Mr. Wednesday's behind the whole, like, Shadow getting arrested thing, but there's like, maybe there was some other god at play here, like, I don't know, I feel like he's the only one that will kind of mess with luck. He kind of, as he brought up before, more often than not, given enough time, he usually gets what he wants. So who's to say, like, that wasn't like a long, like, it's like he did get what he wanted. He wanted Shadow, so it took him like 3 years to get Shadow, for everything to kind of play out and allow him to be in a position to get Shadow. So, obviously they got this whole setup where Anubis is like, yeah, kind of go with Shadow and everything, the whole situation with your heart and everything. But it's like, once it's all said and done, you'll belong to darkness. It's where they're going to lock her up. And then, because I love that Anubis kind of got pissed off at her and everything, because she's like, oh, I want to go back and everything. Where do I go from here? He's like, you're going to darkness. She's like, no, screw that. The fact of the matter is, I want to go back and everything. Was like, the fact of the matter is, everyone's already moved on. Everyone shed their tears. Everyone already buried your body. The fact of the matter is that even you, the fact is, for what makes you so special, there's people that came, thousands that have come before you, but the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, you were just normal, you were just man, and you were basically nothing, and I will never, like, I won't even remember you, which Laura got super pissed. She was almost like, well, fuck you, before she could even say anything, shot off, pulled away, and brought back to life. So, but now Anubis is taking interest in her, being like, I remember you. Which I know, he took on a dog form here, so. I mean, which it shouldn't be too surprising to me, because the gods all have their powers in their respective forms that they're taking and everything, so. I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Like, he just, like I said, who I assume is his brother, because he said, like, oh, it's a family business, so I assume that's his brother. I mean, granted, I mean, I say that, but I mean, it could easily just end up being like, oh, that could be your significant other or something too. But I'm leaning more towards brother is pulling you by the leash and everything. So I'm like, huh, that's just weird. Why on a leash too? Specific? I don't know. Like I said, crazy episode. I wasn't expecting things to kind of transpire the way they did. I thought just, I legitimately thought most of it. I didn't know the episode was going to lead up. I mean, obviously that's a lot of back explain you got to do. Obviously, explain to who they are and how they got. I mean, basically how Laura got to where she is now. So I'm very interested to see where she goes from the next episode. Like, is she going to be like Shadow's familiar from now on? Will she go back to the darkness with Anubis? I don't think so. I'm sure she's probably going to be around. Maybe she technically falls under Mr. Wednesday's employment. I mean, what is Shadow going to do about, wait, you're back? You're not dead. I mean, this is definitely going to put things in perspective for him because he's been so reluctant to believe things he doesn't want to believe. But then again, he might think like, "Oh, you faked your death" or something like that. Trying to rationalize it because he doesn't want to believe, which is just human nature in general. It's like when given an opportunity, things are a lot easier to explain away than rather than taking the simple option of just believing that the strange, weird shit that is happening is the strange, weird shit that is happening. So we would just have to wait till next week's episode to kind of really see how it all plays out. And now moving on to Twin Peaks, we'll just label it like that. Very very interesting return to Twin Peaks. Obviously, first of all, I got to mention it's weird looking at the show, like looking the way it does in comparison to the original show, because it's obviously like it's been 20 like plus years, so obviously it's going to be different, but it's still weird. Also, the setting change is kind of interesting. Like within both two parts, only a fraction of the episodes are actually spit in Twin Peaks. Most of it's taking place at other places, South Dakota, New York, at one point Nevada. It's so weird because like the show had always taken place in Twin Peaks. I don't think there was ever a moment it took place outside of Twin Peaks. No, that's wrong. There was James' storyline in him and the whole Miss Marsh situation where he's getting framed for murder. The only reason why I remember that so distinctly is because I recently rewatched. I wanted to make sure I rewatched everything so everything's like clear in my mind. So a lot of the finer details I probably wouldn't have remembered if I didn't go back and rewatched it, or clear in my head now. So like I think that's one of the few times any of the story has ever taken place outside. I'm within the confines of the story because obviously there's events that took place outside of Twin Peaks and stuff like that. But within the story itself, that was something that kind of popped up. Really quickly, side note, like amongst the story, like there are like a crap ton of actors in this show that I kind of recognize that's kind of interesting to me. The girl that played Daria, it might not be her, but I swear that's the girl who played Molly from Heroes Reborn, like older Molly, because she was like a little girl in the original series. Her character was anyway. So I think that might have been her. I'm probably completely wrong. Also, Madeline Zima, she played the character named Tracy and everything, which to me, like, have to do my connections things. It's interesting because David Duchovny, she was in Californication with him, which was also another Showtime show, which he also popped up in Twin Peaks in the original series because he played a DEA agent named Dennis, more accurately Denise. So it's like, dude, that just the comparisons in my head. But like I said, it's an interesting turn of events. Like we see how everything played. I mean, especially Tracy's whole storyline. That's kind of sad to see things kind of end up like that. Not completely understanding what exactly went down. Basically, the guy that she was with, I was thinking like, oh, she's trying to sneak in there for some nefarious means. It's like, no, she was just like, oh, I want to spend time with you, and like, oh, can I see what you do? Which basically he watches a clear glass box. And it's his job to say like, oh, I guess check to make sure there's nothing that comes up, or at least record everything so that everyone can see. Apparently he brings up the fact that the person who worked before him actually saw something, but then he's like, wait, what? Like the guy never told him what it was that he saw. So, I mean, to me, it looked like the figure of a woman. Like, I mean, I could be whatever it is that killed them. It came through the glass and just ate their faces off. I mean, obviously, I'm just going to be bouncing all over the place. But when it comes to Cooper, like Cooper went there first after the whole situation inside the Black Lodge. So the fact is that thing, because it happened, because we see storyline wise, like obviously it's kind of out of context, but it's like Cooper pops in there first and then he pops away. So could this thing that was there that killed him, could that have been following Cooper? Could it be something from the Black Lodge trying to pull him back? I mean, because there's just, obviously, like that's a big storyline is like, what's up with this whole like Black Lodge situation, because obviously Cooper's been kept here for like the past 25 years, but then it's like, why has he been, I guess because apparently there's kind of almost like an equivalent exchange type of situation. Like Cooper cannot leave the Black Lodge. I mean, more so than anything, it's more like a waiting room. Like all that current stuff, it's more specifically the waiting room is how it's been described in the past. But it's like he can't come back in until the other Cooper, who is in fact his doppelganger from, the end of, season two. So it's like, because my understanding, obviously, the way season two ended, it was like Bob was inside of him, but now is it like Bob replaced, maybe, because I'm wondering, is that supposed to be because of the whole Bob situation with the actor who, it's not going to get into it too much because it's depressing and all of that. But I wonder, is that kind of playing a role in it? I mean, because obviously Bob plays a part in the story because he's kind of like set up to, so far he's been set up as like the main antagonist, but obviously there's like more above it because, Bob isn't the only of his kind, because we know Mike also exists, which we see him in, well, rather Gerard. I don't know whether that's him speaking or whether that's Mike, because we never found out what his particular situation was at the end of Twin Peaks. The last time we saw him was like he was helping for the hunt with Bob, but that's about it. Like we never saw him pop up for the rest of the series, so wondering what his circumstances are. It seems that basically, as long as the doppelganger Coop, whatever that situation is, maybe it's like Bob inhabited. Because to me, I thought like obviously Bob inhabited Cooper's body. I mean, obviously you see this other Cooper and he has long hair and everything. I thought, and the way he dresses and everything, I was like, oh, that's supposed to kind of reflecting a more modern look for Bob. But it's like, no, that's doppelganger Cooper. So that fact is, because I guess my understanding is like that's not actually Cooper's body per se. Maybe it's the did the doppelganger possess him? Maybe Bob is like, oh, I'm holding his body for you, doppelganger. Switch in, I'm gonna go do my own thing or something. Or maybe that doppelganger and Bob are the same. I don't know, because obviously the doppelganger aspect is still being brought up and everything. Because there's that whole tree thing, which is like supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be Mike's arm that he cut off, as usual, like. Twin Peaks is confusing as hell. I mean, granted, it's like subsequently watching the show, I'm like, it makes me wonder, like, everything makes a lot more sense because I've already watched the show previously. So it's like, I'm going into this not understanding anything. Certain storylines, like at the beginning, you see Jacoby like with a shovel. It's like, that's all we get from that. It's like, what is that about? I mean, it seems like a lot of this is obviously a lot of setup and just kind of like, reintroducing you to this world. Like I said, it's like, because it's no longer just a Twin Peaks thing. It seems like this is spread out to the world because we have nefarious stuff going down. There's this guy, his name's Bill, played by Matthew Lillard. Another, like, that kind of got me. Apparently, he's being arrested for killing, because obviously this takes place in South Dakota. There's a woman named Ruth who got killed. Her head was sliced off, but the body that was in the bed wasn't hers. It was someone else's body, apparently, which is interesting. But Bill's fingerprints are all over the place. He's like, I didn't go there, but he's like, I had this dream about going there. I'm like, oh boy, we know how dreams work in this series. Like, the fact of the matter is, there's so much to that. So, but then you find out that his wife, Phyllis, kind of knew about, he's like, I knew about you having an affair. And he's like, well, I know about you and George, his lawyer, having an affair. And the fact of the matter is, you might have been sleeping with someone else. Which later on, Cooper kills her, doppelganger Cooper shoots her, and is saying like, oh, this was George's gun. So it's like, what? Like, everything seems so disconnected. It seems like, because obviously doppelganger Cooper's got his own plans. Obviously he's connected to some shady stuff. He's doing something. I mean, he's had these 25 years to himself, so it's like maybe we'll find out eventually like what he's been doing in these 25 years, because no one's seen quote unquote Cooper in that amount of time, because you hear that from Lucy and Andy, because the log lady called Hulk and everything about the whole situation, which is like, why is Hulk doing, like, I would think out of anyone, the person that would deal with this would be Harry, which apparently Harry's got a son, because it's like, oh yeah, some guy was looking for Sheriff Truman, but then like Lucy was like, which one? So there's that. And also the fact is her last name's Brennan, so obviously her and Andy got married, which is like, obviously. They also have a son named Wally, and that's interesting. That's not the only ones. Obviously, we saw Ben and Jerry Horn. Still no sign of Audrey, considering, like, I mean, she didn't end on the most interesting circumstances. I mean, not the interesting circumstances, the best circumstances is what I'm trying to phrase and everything. But basically, it seems like Doppelganger Cooper doesn't want to go back, and he's going to try and do whatever he's supposed to, like, he can to go back. Like, I guess, like, there's a time limit to how long you can be free, quote unquote free. So it's because everyone's telling him, it's like, yeah, you're going back tomorrow. So, and he's like, I'm not going back, because he even has it set and says like, yeah, tomorrow's the day I'm like supposed to go back, which I'm never going back, which is like, so I guess it's a whole predetermined thing, because I mean, obviously when Laura said it to Cooper at the end of the original series, she was like, see you in 25 years. And obviously they kind of reflect that at the beginning, which is, it's kind of interesting when you, obviously you see the show kind of like, you know, in the resolution that it is, like obviously the black sidebars like for the original, but seeing that in kind of full picture, like at the beginning of the show, is kind of interesting to me. It's just like I said, it's just weird. But obviously you had Cooper kind of getting blasted all over the place. Because it seems like this whole Black Lodge thing is going even further. I mean, because we never really delved too deeply into it. Like our only introduction to it was at the end. Obviously, we popped up a little bit in the dreams and stuff like that, but it was never as prevalent as it is now. Like there's a point where Dale opens like the curtains and he looks at an area where, you know, clone doppelganger Cooper is driving a car. So it's like, wow, like how, like where, I guess those can open up anywhere in the world. So like I said, we're walking away from this situation like knowing next to nothing. Like I said, we get little peeks at Twin Peaks. Obviously, we see Shelly. We also see James. So some familiar faces. Also, like I don't think it's called the Roadhouse anymore. I mean, it has a gun. It's like Bang Bang. So I don't know if it's like the Bang Bang bar or whether it's just like the bar. At least I assume. I mean, it looks like it should be the Roadhouse, but maybe it's not. We don't know where everyone's respective stories ended up. We don't never found out like about where Annie's been. Like we don't know what those circumstances are. Like we don't know yet what Doppelganger's Coop's been doing this entire time. Like I said, where everyone else's storylines takes place. Like for instance, Audrey's ending the way it did. Cause we do see Sarah Palmer for a little while, which is kind of like, because out of any of the characters, she is the most in tune with this whole situation. It's something, I guess, that just runs. I mean, there's always the words they used is the gifted and the damned, because that's the only people who could see Bob for who he really was, were the gifted and the damned. And I guess she falls under the category of the gifted. Obviously, her, Maddie, Laura, and Coop can like see the truth. They even brought up Major Briggs, which I guess Doppelganger Coop went to visit him and everything, which is like trying to get some kind of information from the FBI database and stuff like that. Like I said, don't know where everything really stands in it. It's like you're walking into this obviously having so many questions. I have so many questions, so. But I guess like everything will kind of be revealed in due time, like what the hell is going on, what this is all about. Kind of a little disjointed because I obviously got to, you know, slowly bring you back into it and make you also kind of fill you in, but at the same time also like go ahead and expand the story. I mean, I guess it's going to expand out and then retract a little bit and head because all roads are going to lead back to Twin Peaks. This is where it started. And like obviously the kind of the subtitle to everything is like it's happening again, which I guess is what this like I said, the whole point of it, like I guess it's stretching beyond Twin Peaks, and I guess it's going to be kind of like a more world issue, at least for now. It seems like that might be where it is, especially these murders and stuff like that, and considering the whole situation with Bill and his whole situation, like, you know, now his wife's dead and now George is most likely going to get framed for it, but then it's like Bill's also got to deal with the whole situation of like, oh yeah, like, you know, because obviously he lied about the whole affair situation he had with the lady Ruth. What was that other lady's name? Like, I'm just going to refer to her as Miss Green because that's her last name. She was super helpful. It's like, dude, she's like, oh yeah, the fact of the matter is, oh, this person might have maybe they don't. I don't know. It's like, you're super helpful. And then at the end of it all, it's like, oh, maybe you should talk to this person or this person. That person might have the key, but I don't know where they are. It's like, oh, I remember where they are. You can talk to this. It's like kind of talking in circles. You were just kind of like all that roundabout way. And then she's like, oh yeah, like, you know, I'd be worried about, Ruth might have left and not, because I'm supposed to take care of her plants or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, we could use this key to get into her apartment. It's like, then what was this all for, lady? There's still this whole storyline because Leland kind of pops up too about like find Laura, because even he's talking to Laura inside the lodge. She's like, I'm Laura Palmer, kind of bringing up kind of what she brought up before, and it's like, I feel like I know her, and sometimes my arms bend backwards. That was kind of the whole setup from the beginning, and I guess they're kind of reflecting on a little bit, like. I mean, because this was the original dream that obviously like Coop had, and now it's playing out in sort of real time. Then there's a whole conversation of, oh, is this the future? Is this the past? It's like, I'm trying to understand what this is all about. Like, is that really like Mike's arm manifested in the evil that was his arm from all that killing and stuff like that? Was that it in that tree or whatever? And even Mike was like, something's wrong, with the Black Lodge. And obviously, like, the doppelganger sent Cooper on this journey and stuff like that. So, very, very trippy. Like, I think the show is going beyond the realms of even the weird that it was before. They've really stepped up the game. There's even that point across like 2 or 3 sails away from Bill. There's a guy covered in black. He looks like he might be covered in tar or something. It's like, and then he vanishes. Like, what the hell was that? Then there's the giant telling Cooper to remember some numbers and stuff like that. It's like, how is this all going to play out? Like, because obviously Doppelganger has to go back inside. Like, is it going to be a situation that when it's all said and done, he'll get pulled inside, like, automatically, whether he wants to or not, and then Cooper can leave? Or is Hulk and, some others going to have to work together, pull the fake Dale into there so they can get the real Dale Cooper out? So, like I said, I mean, this is just a start, so it's like, we'll just kind of have to wait to see how everything plays out. But, I mean, so far, there's been, like, technically 3 murders. 4 actually, and like this fake Dale Cooper is like at the center of it doing who knows what. Maybe this has something to do with the Black Lodge, like obviously trying to make his stay permanent, but maybe bring a lot of what's in there here. Like, for example, Bob or something, kind of let him have a permanent foothold in this world. Like I said, because I'm curious to see what that whole storyline is about that. Like, where is it? It's like, this is Doppelganger Cooper and Affected Matter. Like, I mean, how does this not turn into a bigger situation, like with the Coops situation? Like, it's like, oh, like, he's an FBI agent and stuff like that. Is he just flying under the radar and stuff like that? Is the FBI keeping an eye out for him? It's like, oh yeah, does the FBI know that this isn't Cooper? Like, I mean, and even if Cooper does come back, what does this mean for him? Because his reputation and his face has kind of been plastered all over the place as a bad guy. And I guess that's something that Cooper's going to have to deal with when he comes back. So, just like overall, like I said, very, very intriguing. Like, you've already kind of got me grasping. I'm very curious to see like where everything goes. I mean, really happy to have Twin Peaks back, but I feel like the show's even more confusing than it was before. So I mean, I'm very curious to see how everything plays out from here. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.